We proceed with the next session. Now I invite Dr. Subramanya Kusnur, Founder Chairman and CEO-AquaKraft Group Ventures, Treasurer Governing Council of UN Global Compact Network, and Consultant Ministry of Water Supply Sri Lanka to speak on 10 years of CSR in India, the learnings and way forward. Dr. Kusnur, please, over to you.
Good morning, friends. My name is Dr. Subramanya Kusnur. I'm founder of a for-profit social enterprise, which we started way back in 2010. And of course, we now have a non-profit as well right now. I've been tasked by to give a presentation of 10 years of CSR. I think all of us here have experienced it. So I'm humbly going to present what has been done very, very briefly, and would love to learn more and let it be more interactive in case if people feel that you have better ideas than what I'm saying, I'll probably stop and then I'll listen to you. Learnings are more important way ahead. Each one of us has a different kind of an experience dealing with CSR right from the time it has been introduced, and it's actually transformed into a business and an industry by itself. So I'll just take you quickly through what has been, as Dr. Bala spoke and everybody spoke, that CSR has been there right since our Upanishads and Vedic activities, when kings were asking rich merchants to help the poor people and so on and so forth. So, phases of CSR, each one of us knows very well. It all began with charity, and we have seen a very strong example of CSR with companies like the Tatas, the Birlas, and then when State Bank was the Imperial Bank, they actually developed the Kolkata port, so to enable trade. So these are very, very strong examples that actually puts India on the forefront of having demonstrated commitment not only towards the society but also towards enabling industry and trade at a time when it was much needed. And then came the entire clarion call by Mahatma Gandhi that each one of us to help the poor. So each one, reach one, and impact one was the mantra that he created around his trusteeship, and which actually formed the base for a lot of trusteeship, which essentially is primarily restricted only to financial services now. Then mixed economy, then came a very, very strong wave of public sector. All banks were public sector. Then we had oil corporations. Then we had various other corporations who actually took the lion's share of coming ahead and doing good for the simple mandate that they would implement the government mandate of what had needed to be done, or probably the gaps between what the government could do and what the government could not do. And that saw a strong era of public sector. Even today, Naushad will agree, public sector will have the largest CSR obligations, and they are doing good in their own way, and they're just only translating it forward. And then the era of globalization and liberalization, which primarily gave a lot of focus on building social equity. Initially when industry started, we started with basic capital, and then we came up with intellectual capital as India became the knowledge capital of the world because of the IT services. And last 15 years, we've seen a large focus on creating social equity and trying to create the community connect in where they are. And that primarily started again to help their own employees. So the entire activity of the liberalization gave birth to larger employment, larger skill development, and all these things had to be done in-house because there was not a structured platform to go ahead and develop capacity or go and develop housing or create a social infrastructure around the places where they were producing. So that actually became one of the what earlier used to call as industrial labor and welfare programs. There's nothing else but a small denominator or incubator for today's structured CSR. India has taken the lead in CSR, as we all know, and April 1st, 2014, India has become the only country to legally mandate CSR and actually involve the public sector, the private sector, and the civil society in development of not only the society but also going forward larger infrastructure which would augment the human development index. I was in Sri Lanka yesterday. I advised the government there. They do not have a CSR law, and there is no definitive CSR law even in the US. So we really are on the forefront in trying to get these people. And one would always argue, people were already doing historically CSR in whatever shape and form they wanted to do. What was the need for the regulation and what was the need for the mandate? Probably it was a way to structure and aggregate intent into a proper platform, which will not only allow the corporates to get impact out of it, but also to continuously engage with the community which they are working with and which they are servicing, which is most importantly around their area of functioning. So what was the rationale in doing this? Is to get the corporate India to come and engage with the social development of the country. And sporadically it was there, and as I just mentioned, it is a structured platform for corporate India to come in and engage with social development, community development, and specific areas of challenges that the country faces. So this was the whole rationale behind it. And corporate mindset that the poor and marginalized are the responsibility of the government alone. Government does a brilliant job always, irrespective of who is in power. There is a strong commitment towards serving the populace while developing policies which lead the country into a greater economic development. And very recently we have seen under the Honorable Prime Minister, the Indian passport today has value. So the government does its own brilliant job, but it can't do it alone. And COVID shows us in a very great way. And I would want to take that as an example, that oxygen cylinders, temporary hospital beds, ambulances, most importantly, food for the people who lost their jobs. Everything came through philanthropy and CSR. So there is a strong qualification of why CSR has been structured as a law. There is always an inclusive growth which is driven by an intent to do good. And this inclusive growth is not just restricted to the society or the community. And you've seen very recently that basic infrastructure has also been funded by CSR at the local level, which makes it very, very imperative to gauge the commitment of a particular, I would not call it a donor, a particular partner who's coming in as a partner to progress, rather than just saying that I'm giving you 10 rupees, you do whatever about it. So CSR gives you that particular this thing. Well, purpose of course is building better efficiencies, and innovation has played a very key role. We spoke about startups very in the last session. And we have seen a lot of startups coming, even though they have been only focused on digital activities, but we've seen a lot of startups trying to leverage digital technologies, IoTs, to infuse a better sense of governance, monitoring, and evaluation. I was just speaking to Aloka on data, which is a very important factor today. And everything that has been implemented, and we always call it the 5 eyes of this thing. It's incidence of a problem, and innovation of a solution, invitation of all the stakeholders, intervention of a solution, impact assessment and monitoring. If we don't drive around, everything is around data driven, and if we don't empower the beneficiary to give us the data, which can then be thought and then run. So you cannot create technology just to get it. It has to be a blend. So these kind of innovations we've seen across healthcare, across education, most importantly across agriculture. We've seen some very interesting innovations about agriculture. We do a lot of work in Baramati, and there we have seen strong innovations towards increasing crop yield, reducing water usage, and harvesting water, and making farmers water positive. So these are some kind of innovations which we think have actually given source, because otherwise if you do in a public procurement mechanism of a government, it's very difficult for you to do it. So innovation, we think, is a very important derivative of the CSR that has come. And most importantly, impact assessment and management with the donor and the partner makes it much more easier to set up the standards and frameworks mutually driven to a specific project, rather than looking at standard third-party available actions. Civil society, the greatest example is employee volunteerism. And we tell people that we encourage corporates to come and involve their employees not for money, but to randomly go and see whether the program is running, the program is successful, is the beneficiary happy, is there a course correction that needs to be needed, because we don't have answers to everything. There's an intent, there is the money, there is a program, but the program may not function the way we want to do it. If there is a course correction, beneficiary will not say, because they say, okay, whatever little time they will keep quiet. Administration will never say that because they will not take a flak on them. So employee volunteerism and local civil society participation in monitoring, evaluation and progress of a particular program is something which is very, very important, and CSR allows you formally to integrate that into your complete program design. So this is another example. I'm sorry I'm talking about examples to what we think it is rather than talking about evolution, but this is essentially how the final product is today. I would not want to go through the steps of evolution. It's a win-win for all. It's good for donors, great for beneficiaries, amazing for regulators, fantastic for administrators, and most importantly, an opportunity to do good with an intent to do good. And it is a great satisfier at the end of the day that you are able to give something to someone. And COVID showed that very, very strongly. We saved a lot of lives with them because of this. Size of CSR in India, it's become an industry by itself. It's around $4 billion today. Tell me which industry gives you $4 billion increasing annually at a compounded annual growth rate of 10% year on year. So you have a strong opportunity to directly impact the GDP of the nation. So people say that CSR philanthropy hai, NGO hai, doing good, all these things is good. But this is hard money. This is actual money which is implemented, which is intervened by several these things. And it's an industry by itself. And this industry now requires qualified enterprises across implementation, across monitoring, and across reporting, all kinds of things. So like how when the accounting started, we required chartered accountants, then we required company secretaries, now we have CFAs, now we have social auditors, and so on and so forth. Please treat this as an industry by itself. And with over 18,000 large corporations in corporate India participating and more joining, this is only going to grow. And this is a way for the civil society and corporate India to demonstrate their commitment in the growth of the company. And the final denominator is collectively as CSR, what is the GDP we have been able to affect. And this is one of the key things that we feel that more and more transparency and more activity. We spoke about the social stock exchange also. There are a lot of things that needs to be done around in that, and to take the size manifold. And I'm sure if we have a structured platform which links the need with the deed, I'm sure this entire budget will be 100,000 crores in the next 5 years' time. Well, these are simple statistics, and the development sectors involved 14. We have around 25,000 crores as of now. Total number of projects, 40,000 projects is a fairly large number. The structured projects, there will be a lot of others which are happening without being registered under CSR. A lot of NGOs are otherwise doing. Case in point is we work very closely with Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. They have conserved water in 3% of the country. That is 19,000 villages across the country. To do that requires serious intent. And each of the interventions, they are water positive year on year. So this 42,000 doesn't include that. And there are many of these kind of selfless non-profits who are doing work on the grassroots in education, in healthcare, in livelihoods, in water, in agriculture, so on and so forth. So what we see is only a denominator in a structured platform, but the actual activities that is done by the non-profits is definitely 10 times more than this.
Yeah, tell me.
Well, these are the large corporations which have felt reliance. HDFC has done a fantastic work empowering farmers.
Come again.
then TCS, ONGC of course has got one of the most biggest budgets, and they have been doing a lot of work in their remote refineries, NTPC, Infosys, ITC, though their produce is different, but their good is much more than what they are doing. So that's one of the things. All oil sectors, all Navratnas are doing some fantastic work around in CSR. Maharashtra leads the list. So we proudly, all of us standing here, can say that we are the lion's share of the whole activity, but not restricting to that. Each state has got its own way of doing things, and it's all about the number of corporates in that particular thing. And Mumbai has got the most registered offices. We have both the National Stock Exchange and the Bombay Stock Exchange. I think the top 500, 60% of them are registered in Maharashtra. So that's why we see this. Again, focus areas have been health, education, environment, rural growth, and in environment we see a lot of activity coming across in terms of green energy, biofuels. So these are kind of innovations which are coming across, and people are trying to see if that can be leveraged. And beautifully enough, what happened was in the Schedule 7, we have R&D as a component for CSR. So you will rightly agree in the incubator that you're running. So we are also trying to talk to people, and we have a partnership with a very esteemed institution called as UDCT in Mumbai, where we are trying to get large corporates to come and express their intent towards R&D, and then identify problem statements from the ground, and try and see how we can build innovations around that. And we were successful in doing a few. I'll talk about my examples at the end. I didn't want to make it related to our experience, but first, what is the progress in the last 10 years? Increased CSR spending. When we started it, it was very difficult. It was the public sectors who took the lead, who started showing that something can be possible. Their balance sheets showed a specific section on CSR, so that got incubated very well. And in that, I strongly recollect ONGC, HPCL, and Gas Authority of India were one of the early movers who actually contributed this and took this. And so just to step back, the first CSR was given for the public sector enterprises, even before it was rolled out here. So Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, who's the architect of the law, also happens to be a chairman of our foundation. He says the first idea when he, after became the corporate affairs secretary, became the heavy industry secretary. So they got the public sector enterprises to first adopt this law and show it in the balance sheet, which actually gave the drive for the government to take this beyond voluntary this thing to actual. So this has been a very, what one would say, encouraging development which the government took, rather saying that we'll do it first and then we'll invite others to come and join us. So that's essentially how it evolved. So I also came to know about it a couple of months ago itself when he explained.
It was 5%.
It was 5%. Absolutely, Dawson. You were very right. That was 5%, and all the public sector says, in any case, we are spending money. But what was told to them was, let's build the statute out of your interventions. So first 2 years went on making them comply to that, and then they got it, because the public sector have large budgets. So then they got it to 2% under a high-powered committee which Dr. Chatterjee chaired. So they got it to 2%, and then it became from voluntary to compulsory, and then today where we are. So education and healthcare are darling projects of most of the CSR, because they can actually see impact happening at the grassroots level. So if I have an unskilled worker working in my factory, and if I'm able to give him quality education, that man is merit to my life. So CSR is not just social activity. It's actually building your social connect with your employees, number one, and then the community. Who's the community? It's your employees who are staying outside the factory. So that's how the focus of CSR actually came in healthcare and education. So all public sector banks have got a fantastic medical policy, healthcare policy. My father was in Reserve Bank and he suffered a stroke in 1979. 10 years of service to go. Reserve Bank took off him completely. So that is what is translated now under CSR for their labor and welfare activity and for their community engagement, which is around this thing. So all of them come from the local ground. So this is how education and healthcare took the scene. Empowering women was, I think, one of the most important things, because India, even now, is, women empowerment here has been there all throughout. Each of the male friends will agree that our better halves have got better control over what we do than anybody else. But that was one of the key things, because the impact of what one would do would be directly felt at the dining table or while going to school. So the women is a direct, impactful beneficiary of anything that you do. So women empowerment started in a very strong way. Self-help groups mushroomed, and I still remember Nawab chairman telling me 7 years ago that we have started rating self-help groups who have taken financing from us, returned to us, and that's how built a strong platform for anybody to go ahead and talk to them. So that's one thing. Environment sustainability. So we have abused what was given to us by nature very nicely, and now it's back to basics, which is now called sustainability. So it's going back to basics and securing what you had and what you've distorted. So environment plays a very important role, and we've seen a lot of tree plantations. HDFC did some, Deepak Parekh did a lot of tree plantations in Palghar, and eventually, when it went from normal plantations to normal activities, now people have started geotagging those trees. Now they are trying to say that what they exist. Of course, there is no proper mechanism for measuring sequestration, but there is a thumb rule. So there is something which is coming. With nothing, at least there is a thumb rule today. Going forward, there will be a monitoring mechanism. This only CSR can enable. This can't be a business. Nobody will put in the money. No corporate leader will put in the money. No Gujarati will put in the money. So this is what CSR helps to do. I work with a lot of them. So transparency and reporting, of course, it's increased a lot. What it was earlier, it is much more stronger right now. At least there is a program design. At least there is a perceived impact. At least there is some notional impact that can be monitored. This again will grow ahead, and here a lot of innovation is needed in terms of building very grassroots level monitoring mechanisms. So we see a lot of smart electricity meters, smart water meters. You have to pay through the nose to buy that. But there's already an existing infrastructure. And one of our partners, IIT Bombay, we gave a deal to them saying that each of the analog water meters, can't you make them intelligent? And that is the innovation that we are working. So what we're trying to say is that we have to find solutions to our existing problems. Don't relate to the West. West is a different thing altogether. They will not know the versatility of problems that we enjoy here. So that's a different action altogether. Please tell me if I'm going beyond time, Aniha. Yeah. So I'll go. So these are, I don't want to really go, but to talk about collaboration. It's a multi-stakeholder approach. Everybody has to come together, and then only, it will show a right partnership. Skill development. One of the most important activities, what has happened is the amount of vocational courses that ITIs have started giving after the CSR has come out has become very, very well. So we saw the artisans program with the Prime Minister launched, and these are small things which are actually driving not a change. It's giving a fuel to the passion that the local people had and otherwise didn't have an opportunity. So CSR skill development has actually transformed that entire passion of the country into seeing that yes, we can do something. What happens eventually is this thing, but as we say, this is evolution. So this is precisely what we feel has been another key thing. Long-term commitment, everybody comes in for a long-term commitment. So no corporate just wants to do a one-off project, and they also want to be continuously engaged, and the CSR policy helps them to trap that into this, whether it's good or not, but at least there is a commitment that they would do. And especially in corporates, if there is a change in leadership, the program should not suffer, is what essentially what it says. Well, finally, we feel emerging trend of CSR transforming into not just contributing to GDP, but food security through innovations in agriculture, water security through innovations in management of water, and energy security through biofuels. I'll take another 2 more minutes and tell you what our experience has been. We started off in 2010 as a technology company. We innovated technologies which are energy free, water positive, and completely green. We don't use any chemicals at all. What started as a technology activity, we spent the next 4 years going from Assam to Kanyakumari, Last count, I have spent 9,300 villages to tell government that this is what we can do, but they didn't because they didn't have an idea. 2014, CSR comes in, HPCL gives us the first mandate. We pioneered the first water ATM in India, and we implemented a program for them across the country, including Barmer, where TDS of water was 9,000, and that ran till around 2 years ago without maintenance. So CSR gave us the model to showcase our technology, then converted it into a sustainable development model, then we built a women empowerment model around that, and lastly we said that if everything is there, how do we measure impact? So we are the company which launched the first digital water bank. We've launched water credits and a sustainability score for a consumer. Most millennials today want to take a choice which is sustainable and which is environment friendly. So we've created that score, and we've issued credits to the Art of Living, which has now been offsetted by MNCs in India. And going forward, CSR water credits qualify for CSR under the Schedule 7. So we tell corporates that if you have the ability to do it, do it. Otherwise, we have qualified impact-oriented projects. Come and take it from here. So yesterday we went beyond India, and next week into Sri Lanka, and next week we'll go to UAE and then to the US. What I'm saying is that CSR helped us to drive this. We are smiling today, but we went through fantastic experiences, challenges and tribulations. But going forward, we feel the innovation quotient of the country, the youth, yearning to drive a change, corporates becoming more sensitive towards CSR rather than a donation, but as a part of the strategy, and driving social equity out of this entire program, I think is the way forward. I'll stop here. I'm sorry if I've taken more. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Dr. Kusnur, for your presentation. I request Ms. Aloka Mujumdar, as the chairperson of CSR committee, to present a moment of to the token of appreciation.
Thank you so much.